Today, we're going to talk about two stories that has to do with free speech and First Amendment rights. One story is regarding an independent reporter by the name of Simon Atiba, who works for his own company called Today News Africa, who was barred access from the White House press briefing room on July 31st, 2023. Another story involves, again, free speech, First Amendment rights, when the Associated Press was barred access to the Oval Office from asking the president direct questions, but still maintained the White House press briefing room access in 2025. I'm going to show you that the nuances, the similarities and the nuance differences between the two stories and the backlash that ensued after both events occurred. Let's take a look.
Yeah, right. You're right. You're here for me. Right for me. No. Nope, that's not. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this.
You've been discriminating against some people in the briefing room. And I'm saying that this is the U.S., this is not China, this is not Russia. This is not Russia.
Okay.
What you are doing, you are making a mockery of the First Amendment. It's been 7 months. You've not called on me. You've ignored my messages. I'm saying that that's not right.
All right, so I apologize for the poor audio, but in the background you can hear Simon Atiba from his news organization that he is very frustrated that he hasn't been chosen to ask questions in the White House press briefing room in 2023. I think the reason why Karine Jean-Pierre was very reluctant in picking on him to ask questions is because he asks tough questions that she is unable to answer, nor does John Kirby, who is the assistant press secretary, when things get a little rough for Karine Jean-Pierre in the press briefing room. So he's saying, he meaning Simon Atiba, is saying that this is not Russia, this is not China. I should be picked on to ask the type of questions as long as it's legal, as long as it's not, it could be controversial, but it's not outside the ballpark of asking a question that is relative to news and politics. So let's continue.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to the press briefing room. Okay. Are we ready? Are we going to behave?
Against some people in the briefing room because you don't like them, you don't like them.
So you have a choice. You have a choice. You have a choice. Okay.
And I'm saying that that's not right. This is not China. This is not Russia. This is the United States. This is the White House. It's been 7 months. I sent you the rest of us are here too, pal.
Another thing that I want to point out is that it seems like the other reporters in the room are siding with the Biden administration's Karine Jean-Pierre. I think that the other reporters should have taken the side of Simon Atiba because he's a fellow reporter just like them. And you could see that the entire room, or you can hear that the entire room is piling up on him because he is expressing a point. However, I think that he should have expressed his grievance in private and not hold up the opportunity for other reporters to intake information and ask questions.
Understand that you get questions all the time and you don't understand what it is to sit here for 8 months and be discriminated against. Understand that you're in the front row and you feel comfortable and you get questions all the time. But there are people.
All right, so you heard that. We are going to get to another story because after this, I believe that this story, let's see, let me see if I got the timeline right. In this particular instance, Simon Atiba started shouting at Karine Jean-Pierre on 20 March 2023. The White House announced new rules on reporters disrupting the flow of the White House press briefing room by shouting and mentioning decorum. Decorum always has to happen. Professionalism always has to happen. No one is disputing that. But there are frustrations when you are doing your due diligence and you're making your way into the White House press briefing room with the appropriate credentials to get in and then not being picked. I'm sure there are other reporters that haven't been chosen as often as others, but you have to maintain professionalism. So the shouting match took place on 20 March 2023. The White House announced new rules on decorum and any disruptions or whatever the case was since that new announcement that occurred in the White House press briefing room would suffer consequences, right? And then on 31 July 2023, Simon Atiba's White House press briefing room pass was revoked. And then somewhere in August 2023, Simon Atiba filed a lawsuit against Karine Jean-Pierre and the White House press briefing staff. So I want to get into a little bit more of the story. And we will start by, here we go. We will start with Tucker Carlson.
Age where the worst seem to be on a perpetual ascendance. They become White House press secretary, the dumbest among us, and the best are crushed. And we believe Simon Atiba is one of the best. He's one of the very few journalists in the White House briefing room who asks real questions. He is the top reporter from Africa in Washington. And for that, he's hated. Karine Jean-Pierre has been avoiding him for months. Now, Simon Atiba has learned he's being booted from the White House Correspondents Association, which controls access to the White House briefings. Kind of shocking news. Simon Atiba is with Today News Africa. He joins us tonight. Simon, I'm sorry to hear this news. I'm shocked by it. How can you be thrown out of the White House Correspondents Association? On what grounds?
Okay, thank you for having me, Tucker. Thank you for having me on the show. And thank you for releasing the videos of the January 6th that show that we didn't have the full story. And I just want to thank you personally for that.
Of course.
So the White House Correspondent Association has decided that I'm not worth it. I'm not supposed to be a member of the association. They refuse to renew my membership. They are trying to help the press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, because when you do the right thing, when you ask the right question, they try to silence you, they try to censor you. And the only thing they are doing to me right now is trying to punish me for trying to be a real journalist, for asking the question that the American people really care about. And it's shameful, it's a disgrace. And the president of the White House Correspondents Association, Tamara Kidd, who worked for NPR, a publicly funded media organization, should be ashamed of herself.
Absolutely ashamed of herself. So NPR's correspondent, its fake reporter, is colluding with the White House press secretary to throw the one guy in the room out who asks real questions. That's what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. When you do the right thing, when you don't send questions in advance, Karine Jean-Pierre, she's totally incompetent. She can't even answer basic questions. She lies a lot. She's lied repeatedly about the classified document, about other things. When you ask those questions, when you press for the truth, they silence you. I never believed that this could happen to me in the United States. In Africa, when we look up to the US, we saw the beacon of light, the beacon of excellence, the beacon of free speech.
Right. So what he's saying here, he's given a summary on what occurred that day and the reason for his revocation of the White House press briefing room pass. And To sum this up real quick, this segment right here is that Karine Jean-Pierre isn't or wasn't a good press secretary. She lied about the decline in Joe Biden's health. She lied about the Hunter Biden laptop where 51 retired intelligence agents signed a letter saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was fake and it was Russia collusion. She lied about inflation when it reared its ugly head about 3 years ago, called it transitory. And she just lied about a lot of things that reporters like Simon Atiba had questions on, and he was blocked. He wasn't chosen to ask those questions. And, you know, that is a violation of First Amendment right, free speech. Now, here's another story regarding the Trump White House press briefing room very recently. And Caroline Leavitt spells out that although the Associated Press was barred from entering into the Oval Office from asking President Trump questions, they still had access to the Trump administration's White House press briefing room. And here we go right here.
Which White House official made the decision to bar the AP reporter from the Oval Office and the diplomatic reception room last night?
Well, first of all, let me just set the record straight. It is a privilege to cover this White House. It's a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to go into the Oval Office and ask the President of the United States questions. That's an invitation that is given. We reserve the right to decide who gets to go into the Oval Office.
But isn't it retaliatory in nature is the argument? Because the reason that the AP was barred, which they said was because they're not using the phrase Gulf of America, they're using Gulf of Mexico in line with their standards. And so the question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language that you guys believe reporters should use? And how does that align with the First Amendment commitment that you were just talking about?
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable. And it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. And I'm not sure why news outlets don't want to call it that, but that is what it is. The Secretary of Interior has made that the official designation in the geographical identification name server, and Apple has recognized that, Google has recognized that, pretty much every other outlet in this room has recognized that body of water as the Gulf of America, and it's very important to this administration that we get that right, not just.
So to sum this particular segment up is that President Trump and his cabinet members, especially the one from the Department of Interior, went through all the legal channels to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. All legal channels were explored, paperwork processed, and as you heard Caroline Leavitt say, Google has recognized this, Apple has recognized this, and in federal papers that were filed to make the name change happen, recognizes this. So how come the Associated Press cannot recognize this? And you know, you may hear the argument about, hey, the Associated Press is an international news organizations, and there are countries around the world that don't recognize the Gulf of America, and they are still calling it the Gulf of Mexico. Well, that's their problem. And the reason why the AP was barred from the Oval Office was because in Caroline Leavitt's eyes and President Trump's eyes, AP was pushing lies, especially when the Gulf of America is the official name of that body of water off the coast of Louisiana. Let's get to the backlash, which I believe is one-sided, real quick. The backlash on CNN about insinuating that President Trump is a tyrant, he wants it his way, and all this other kind of stuff. Meanwhile, the Biden administration did the same thing to Simon Atiba. But the difference is that Simon Atiba was barred from the White House press briefing room, whereas AP was barred from the Oval Office, but still has access to the White House press briefing room.
This is a power play. They're plain and simple. The president wants people to obey. He wants people to use the words he chooses. He wants people to fall in line, and if they don't, they lose their access. They're not allowed to be in the company of the president. Notably, in the last 2 days, when the AP reporters have been blocked, in one case I'm told physically blocked from entering the Oval Office, the photographer was still allowed in, the AP photographer, right? Because the president still wants his photo taken. He wants the pictures, but not the words. This is a First Amendment violation, and I expect in the next few days the AP will file suit, and they have a very strong case in court. This is yet another example where the courts will be the recourse for presidential action.
Right, and what are the other media outlets doing?
Right now,
Yeah,
they're still showing up, they're still asking questions, but that's right, the Correspondents Association has condemned this and called it unacceptable. I think you're suggesting maybe reporters should, skip the briefing?
Should band together, because I mean, listen, if the bully managed...
So Anna Navarro made the point that I just made minutes ago. When Simon Atiba was ganged up on by other reporters in the room on March 20th, 2023, there was no show of unity among reporters. And Anna Navarro is suggesting that all reporters should band together. Now, I think that all reporters should band together no matter who's in the White House, but it seems like she was silent when this happened to Simon Atiba, but is very loud in her opinion on national television when this same sort of thing is happening to the Associated Press under the Trump administration.
just to bully one, he's not going to stop at one.
I don't think this is as emotional as we're making it out to be. You know, take away the hysteria for a moment. First off, Trump doesn't need...
Who's being hysterical?
Both of you. Trump doesn't need, first of all, AP
You
to
obviously
take
don't
his
know what a
programs.
hysterical Anna Navarro is
I
like.
just believe it comes down to compliance.
That's true,
Trump put out an executive order. There was an executive order. He changed the name legally to Gulf of America. They're United States-based. I know they're international as well, but right now they're covering U.S. politics. So if he makes an executive order, they should respect that. And if they don't, being there is not a right, it's a privilege. It's not
I'm going to add in here, though, that this has been called the Gulf of Mexico for 400 years, and every other nation.
It doesn't
calls
matter.
The Gulf of Mexico. So just because Trump claims that we need to,
States.
okay, but doesn't this feel like a really weird, like wokeism thing on the right? Like, if,
Denali, Mount McKinley.
Let me read their explanation for why they are not doing it. Essentially, they are saying that the Trump's order only carries authority within the United States. Mexico, as well as other countries and international bodies, do not have to recognize that name change. The Gulf of Mexico has carried that name for 400 years.
It doesn't matter.
As was said at the table, and the Associated Press is going to refer to it by its original name, while acknowledging that Trump has a new name that he would like to call it. They are an international organization. No one except Trump with a pen has said that it's the Gulf of America. It's a body of water that also has borders with another country, and it's been named that for 400 years.
I know, but we have a lawful process in this country for changing the name of it. The president went through it with the Secretary of the Interior, by the way. I mean, it feels a little
different. Can I just answer your Denali question? The Denali thing is actually different because that's a place that's in the United States proper.
Yeah, so Abby Phillips definitely interrupted Scott Jennings because Scott Jennings was beginning to go on a roll. As I stated before, President Trump went through the Department of Interior and other agencies that were involved with the change in the name to the Gulf of America. And that's basically all we have to understand right here.
But we also have the ability to change this body of water. I think, look, this smacks to me of a news organization looking for a way to pick a fight with Donald Trump over something that they don't need to pick a fight over.
Exactly.
A. B, B, he is the president, and there is a lawful process that he did follow to do it.
The news
And so
organization
why
did
won't they
not
just
pick a fight
respect
with Donald
that?
Trump over this. Donald Trump picked a fight with the news organization.
No, they're not calling
over
it by the name.
No,
That's
the
fight.
news organization can do whatever they want. If they want to call it the Gulf of South America, they can call it
But
that.
why would I
Donald
respect
Trump
a news
doesn't-
organization that
Yeah,
doesn't deal in reality?
but
You don't have
false
to.
information.
If to not call it what
they
it
can
is.
call it whatever they want because there's free speech in this country. Wouldn't you agree?
So I'm going to end it right there because it's getting silly. Scott Jennings is definitely the star of the show on the CNN panel. Look, Associated Press can call it the Gulf of Afghanistan if it wanted to, but it's not based in reality, which is the reason why Associated Press has been barred indefinitely from the Oval Office, and that has been the case since February 11th, 2025 of this year. And so as long as just like Caroline Levitt said in 2 clips ago, lies, people who spread lies, organizations that spread lies are going to be held accountable. And in this case, the Associated Press has been barred from the Oval Office from asking President Trump direct questions. Period. End of story. And so I hope that I was able to point out the 2 different stories related to free speech, First Amendment rights. Both stories are related, but have small little nuances that make them slightly different. In either case, Simon Atiba lost all access to the White House press briefing room, and I don't even think that he was ever invited to the Oval Office to ask Biden questions. Whereas the Associated Press, although they lost access to the Oval Office, they maintained their access to the White House press briefing room. And so there you have it. I appreciate your time and attention to this matter, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you.